Hello, friends. I'm back today with a podcast style episode for you. So, today we're talking about how to right size your problems. This is something I'm really passionate about, and it's really a very simple concept, but can have a profound experience on your life. I know this because it has on mine and on every family member, friend, client, student I've shared this with. It has been life changing. So, even though it is simple, do not discount it. So, the human brain, as we know, has the tendency to supersize our problems. Our primitive brain sees problems as a threat to our survival and existence. The problems of our ancestors were really serious, right? Really, if you think about it, they really did mean their survival. Running out of food, losing half of their offspring before they were even, toddlers, having disputes with neighboring tribes, all of these things meant death. And so our brain evolved to see problems as survival, as like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And so now, even though we live in relatively safer environments, I mean, compared to our ancestors, of course, right? And we have a different scale for problems. There's more variety in our problems. What I'm trying to say is that not every problem is survival based, right? We're not going to die because we're running out of milk in our refrigerator. But the brain can outsize or supersize the problems and turn literally moles into mountains. And so, even though not all of our problems are life threatening, our brain doesn't know that. And it will turn problems, it will even create problems out of things just to have something to worry about and be anxious about because that's how we evolved. Think of it this way: people that were anxious about problems and tried to solve them, when I'm thinking about our ancestors, they survived. So we have the genome of people that were anxious and worried and did things about them. The people that were like, oh, no problem. We ran out of food. No way. No worry about it. We'll manifest it somehow. Those people probably died in the wild. So that's why we do have this tendency to worry. So in Lady Balls, my book, my second book, I talked about how a lot of problems are actually self-created and can lead to a lot of human suffering. So I want you to imagine this problem scale, okay? And on one extreme end is life-threatening problems. These are like, God forbid, serious illnesses, accidents, right? Like serious things. And on the other extreme of the spectrum would be problems that haven't happened yet. These are the things that our brain imagines and then worries about, even though they haven't even happened yet. And in 99% of the cases, it's probably not going to happen. And even if it does happen at a later time, well, you're going to have access to different solutions, resources, different consciousness to be able to solve them. So solving them now when they really haven't happened, as you can see, will create undue suffering in your mind. So what I want you to start thinking about is, where on the spectrum does this problem that I'm dealing with actually fall? The truth is, it probably falls somewhere in the middle, right? So what we don't want to do is we don't want to supersize our problems, but we also don't want to minimize them and hide from them and avoid them and not deal with them. So let's use the example of, let's say that someone was laid off from their job. Supersizing the problem would be saying, oh my God, I lost my job and now I'm not going to be able to provide for me, and I'm not going to be able to provide for my family, and I'm probably never going to be able to find a job, and which means that we're going to run out of our savings and we're all going to die. Well, a lot of those things haven't happened yet, right? You haven't died. It's not like your whole life has passed and you couldn't find a job. So you've supersized the problem and are suffering because of it. And think of it this way: when you've supersized it, are you really going to be able to think of solutions, all solutions? Are you going to be in creative mode, or are you going to be in desperation mode? Are you going to be in fight or flight or freeze mode when you supersize your problems, right? Well, let's take the other extreme. What if you minimize it? What if you're like, oh, I lost my job, I was laid off, and we only have, 3 months of savings, but you know what? I don't have to find another job. Like, it's fine, right? If I was meant to have a job, I'd have this job, or maybe another one would find me. I'm just going to use this time to just relax and play video games. And maybe I'll just start hanging out with my buddies at the bar. And, maybe you pick up some really destructive coping mechanisms like drinking too much, playing, video games instead of looking for a job, or, I don't know, whatever, like spending money you don't have, gambling. So that's minimizing your problem and finding unhealthy coping mechanisms. And that's obviously not going to help you, because now you're avoiding creative solutions that could be possible for you. And you are, doing things that are destructive to your health and financial situation. So, what would it mean in this scenario to be in the right sizing? Well, you could say, oh my goodness, I've lost my job, I've been laid off. And maybe you give yourself a time to like freak out. Maybe you call your buddy and you are so mad and you like rant about your boss and what a jerk he was. And you can't believe that he laid you off after everything that you put in this job and everything you did for this company. Okay. So you have like a moment with your friend, and then you get off the phone and you go and look at the reality of your situation. You're like, okay, I have no job, but I have a degree, I have skills, I have experience, and I've got 3 months of savings and a severance package and unemployment checks. And you do the math and you figure out that you are fine for the next 6 months. Like, no matter what happens, 6 months, you're like totally fine. And then you're like, you know what? I haven't had a break in a moment. Maybe I'm going to take a week off from even job searching, anything. I'm going to use some of this money that I'm getting, and I'm going to take my family on a vacation. And then when I come back, then I'm going to think about what I'm going to do next. So this is you being proactive. You're right sizing the problem. You're looking at reality as it is. You're not adding to it. You're not minimizing it. And then think of it this way: which of these scenarios are you more likely to be in your creative mode? Think of this guy who takes his family on vacation, knows he's good for 6 months, he's got financial runway. Think of the ideas that he's going to have on that vacation, or even during that 6 months. Maybe he ends up starting a business of his own. Maybe he ends up getting an even better job that's closer to his house, that has better work-life balance. So this is the zone, the right size of the problem that I want you to play in, because that's where all the creative solutions are. That's where you are playing from a position of strength. You are not freaking out. You're not in desperation mode. You're not freezing. You're not fighting. You're not coping. You are in touch with reality, and you are working with personal power from a position of strength. This requires, obviously, spirituality, consciousness, emotional control. By the way, all of these things I talk about in chapter 4 of my Lady Balls book. I talk about even the next level after this, after right sizing, is upgrading your problems. And I talk about how, you know, what we even consider problems, what registers in our consciousness as a problem, should change over time. So I have a story for you guys. So recently, my husband met this guy who was quite upset because he owns a food truck. And he recently, this is like his livelihood. It's how he provides for himself and his family. And recently he got a notice from the like the lot where he parks his food truck, saying that he's not allowed to run his um like food truck from there anymore. There's a hold placed. He cannot park there anymore. He can't run his business. And at the moment, he didn't really have anywhere else to go. And he was really panicking and worried. He had just had his mother come and stay with him as well. So not only did he have him and his family to provide for, he also was now responsible for his mom. So he was in a lot of panic. And during this time, he was telling my husband the story. One of his old buddies came to town that he hadn't seen in a while. And so when his buddy called him, he's like, oh, well, let me go meet with my buddy and tell him about my problem and see maybe he can give me some advice because he's been in business for a really long time. So he makes a plan to meet up with with his buddy, and he meets up with him. And what he was telling my husband was that before he could even tell his buddy his problem, he heard his friend's problem. And he was telling us, he said, when I heard my friend's problem, I forgot about my own. That is like not only right sizing, but upgrading your problems. Like his friend had just lost his wife after a battle of 2 years of a very aggressive cancer. And he had put everything he had, his soul, his mind, his energy, his heart, his finances, into helping his wife fight this battle that she didn't win. And so when this guy heard about his friend, he forgot in that moment about his own problem. He's like, oh my God, I don't really have a problem. I'll find another place. There's so many other options available for me of how I can run my food truck. But this guy, like, he just lost the love of his life. So this is what I mean when I say, upgrading our problems, realizing that solutions and resources are always available to us, but our ego has us believing that every single thing is a threat to our survival, when really it's just a challenge that you are fully capable of solving. There's always solutions available. But when you go into panic mode, you are not in your creative zone and you're not going to be able to find those solutions from there. So I hope this finds you well and you're able to apply this in your life and find those divine resources and solutions to whatever you're dealing with. All right, babes, I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.